Assalamu alaikum. The triad of sustainability, environmental sustainability, social sustainability, and economic sustainability. Those three pillars are the triad of sustainability. Without them, there won't be any prosperity, and I don't think the sustainable finance will reside or will thrive in any economy. Addressing those three pillars will enable us not only to address human sustainability in the broader definition of sustainability, but it also will enable us to address resilience. If we look at the sustainability and the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals are 17 global goals that are a reflection of our ESG. If we look at the interconnection between the Sustainable Development Goals and ESG, they are heavily interconnected, but usually the SDGs are addressed by government and the ESG are addressed by regulators and private sector. Saying so and moving forward, the interconnection between the two needs to evolve and mature thoroughly. Otherwise, there will be a challenge in providing and prioritizing the sustainable finance needed to enable the evolution and achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. If we look at the current status, the evaluating progress since 2015 and 2019, all SDGs, focusing on colors and directions of movement, slowing down of the progress, reverse the progress on several goals, still negative trends in environment and inequality-related goals. And if we look at the best countries addressing their Sustainable Development Goals, they are behind their target by minimum 50%. If we look at this SDGs target versus reality, we can see that it is still a challenge globally. Some of the challenges are associated with the lack of finance. What is ESG? ESG refers to the non-financial risks and benefits considered by the public and private sector when managing their operations and making investment. Government laws and regulations set the rules of the game and codify how these risks and benefits are considered and addressed. Today, the taxonomy on E is very mature in lots of continents. The S is neglected, overlooked, or left behind. Saying so, I'll give a few examples. If we look at the circular economy practices when it comes to electrical vehicles, is lithium practices from mining to recycling are considered a sustainable or a circular economy? Not really. If we look at uranium, until the war of Ukraine, nuclear energy was not considered a sustainable energy. Due to politics and influence from certain countries, I will not say France, it became part of sustainable energy. The regulators made a huge shift. But are the practices of mining of uranium today are sustainable? Well, we hear lots of incidents related to radioactive poisoning, cancer, etc., where the uranium is being mined. In addition, the disposal of uranium after the usage in what's so-called sustainable energy is still an issue. In addition, if we look at how governments are addressing the sectors and the sensitive sectors, I have an ethical question. Is a diesel generator in a thirsty land of a farm in Asia or Africa polluting Earth more than, let's say, a depleted uranium bomb? There are lots of sectors today, including military sectors, are not accountable for their emissions and their footprint when it comes to polluting Earth, which raised a question that was flagged by the President of Brazil during COP28. The amount of spending on military activities on Earth is more than what we need to provide in sustainable finance to address combined SDGs, energy transition, and climate technology development, which is equivalent to 13 to 14 trillion a year. ESG and the SDGs interlinkage. While it is easier to identify and align environmental and social consideration with the SDGs, the connection with governance is often more indirect and linked to their existing environmental and social function. Nevertheless, all of the 17 SDGs can be associated with the various elements of the ESG consideration. Ranging from tangible to intangible association, all the 17 goals might be attributed to individual elements of the ESG considerations. The human centricity, internal focus, contextual and cultural factors, community and social impact, and quantification challenges, and then political sensitivity. When we address those kinds of questions and focus, we acknowledge that no future without the prosperity and well-being of humans. And moving forward, addressing underprivileged families, poverty, will reduce crimes. Reducing crimes is a reflection of economical prosperity and development. Alternatively, if a crime thrives, the economy will face challenges and then the societies will crumble. The social sustainability refers to a condition where individuals feel included in the development process and believe that they and the future operations will benefit from it. If we look at the subsidies that the UAE government is providing when it comes to the National Housing Program, it is a pillar of social sustainability. Is it enough? No, but it's a cornerstone in a prosperous, sustainable future. When we overcome challenges, deliver public goods, allocate scarce resources in ways preserved as legitimate and fair by all, in addition, that ensures that all individuals can thrive over time, we enable the inclusivity and we address the pillars of social sustainability. Inclusivity, equity, community building, and long-term planning are key. If we look at the pillars around social sustainability as illustrated below, we can achieve social sustainability when it will mature and evolve into an ESG comprehensive integrated taxonomy. The current practices, again, are addressing the environmental, but they are overlooking the social sustainability pillars. World Bank Environmental and Social Framework for Social Inclusivity, the 10 environmental and social standards, assessment and management of environmental and social risks and impacts, labor and working conditions, resource efficiency and pollution prevention and management, community health and safety, land acquisition, restriction on land use, etc. Those are part of the international best practices that we need to look at. And if we look even at the climate, the recent law that was signed by the President of the UAE, Law Decree number 11 for 2024, where it talks about the climate disclosures and enforcing the law on targeting 30th of May to disclose the companies and the corporate in sharing their emissions, their targets, and publishing their baselining. Such practices also address the environmental justice and the inclusion and the impact on the society. If we look at the international best practices on social financing, governance, and structure, I would look at the social impact bond that was developed by Bank of England with the Ministry of Justice, including and creating a micro SME to enable people who have been either rehabilitated from drugs or were in a correction facility. Engaging and enabling them would be brilliant to ensure that their reoffending probability will reduce and their engagement will become successful into the society. Amending it to the UAE context like Federal Tax Authority, Red Crescent, donations, waqf or endowment, etc., make a bigger sense. If we look at the endowment or the waqf, which is an Islamic fundamental principle that was introduced more than 1,400 years ago, it's not for tax evasion as some practices happen by creating an NGO and then making the family becoming members and taking all the financial benefits of the endowment. No. The endowment should have a principle. It could be temporary and it could be permanent, and it could reflect into a social enablement in the society. If we look at the social financial governance, the Bitterberg Social Impact Bond, a snapshot. It was launched in 2010, partnering between the Bank of England and the Ministry of Justice, addressing critical component into the society by reducing the probability of reoffending. In addition, enabling a successful engagement and inclusion of the people who left a correction facility or a rehabilitation center. If we look at the risk mitigation, the ESG washing, we have greenwashing. I believe everyone is talking about it or addressing it somehow. And then we have the blue washing, and then the red washing, the purple washing, and the brown washing. Of course, there are other colors, but due to sensitivity and to address that it is illegal in the UAE to address some of those sensitivities, which is mandated by law in other continents, I believe those 5 are more than sufficient and enough. At the end, to us, X, Y, and XX are the only genders that the humans have. Breakdowning of social washing issues. When we look at the social washing issues, there are local participation issues, human rights abuse and corporate complicity, forced labor, child labor, poor employment condition, occupational health and safety issues, freedom of association and collective bargaining, discrimination in employment, and social discrimination and impacts on communities. Some of those are not applicable in the UAE, specifically child labor. The prosperous society that we have today doesn't allow such risk to have to be in place in the UAE. But if we take the bigger good and we look at the blacklist of the UNICEF, where they published some of the names of the companies who have child labor in other continents or other countries, I believe we can do more in governance by creating a shaming list and enforcing the practices of boycotting such products. In addition, we can look at other factors around social washing issues by boycotting products of countries that are associated with war crimes and other ethical challenges. In fact, I wouldn't say Europe, they have the practices, but it's biased. They target Russia while they are ignoring other countries like Israel. But we are not here to judge. Transformative change and key interventions required for national well-being and happiness, social inclusion, and human-centric growth. If we look at the GSDR framework as a reference, key levers, social sustainable finance and capacity building, examples of key interventions, promotion of underprivileged societies. So we can look at children of martyrs, widows, underprivileged families, etc., could be prioritized in creating a micro SME finance, addressing them. Mobilizing finance towards the SDG and social development is a key enabler. Without finance, everything will remain a dream. If we don't have enough funds to buy a car, a lavish car, we have 2 options: either steal the car or keep dreaming about it with nice posters in the bedroom. When we talk about sustainable development goals, it's the same. Achieving the sustainable development goals will remain a dream if the sustainable finance not there to take place and to provide the required funding. PPP 2.0, well, we created at Mashriq an initiative, we called it UAE ESG and Sustainable Finance Ecosystem. We reached out to the government, talking openly about what needs to be done to enable an evolution on sustainable financing, increasing the willingness of the private sector, specifically financial sector, to develop the required sustainable finance to enable achieving the sustainable development goals. If we look at the energy transition alone, we need more than $160 billion. The UAE government can afford providing such financial means, but it will take priority from other means, whether it's investing or providing for the futuristic economic ecosystem, preparing for zero oil, which is part of the UAE Centennial Agenda of 2071. When we look at the framework conditions, we understand that we need to discuss this openly with the government, transparently. When we want to reduce our risk appetite and to increase our sustainable finance funds, we need to sit and talk about developing further the existing subsidies, incentives, tax rebate, and tax deduction in certain cases to reduce the risk and to increase our risk appetite. The need of social taxonomy is very comprehensive. If we look at the current trends globally, they talk about ESG taxonomy while it talks about environment only. If we want to be transparent, what kind of futuristic societies we will have? Are we enabling the bigger companies to grow bigger, where they can benefit from the tax rebates? Or we want to address the environment for the rich? I don't want to sound socialist, but without addressing the social taxonomy, the crime rate will increase in any society, and the underprivileged family will be more under pressure, and then prosperity in any futuristic society will decline or disappear. Mashriq Climate Change is another example of how we are trying to do an impact by redefining our engagement in CSR. Our integration of environmental and social enabling underprivileged family to create a micro SME in showing that sustainability could be profitable and enabling the underprivileged family to recycle the waste collected in some of the highest beacons globally was part of our engagement, part of our commitment, and part of our footprint that we needed to set foundation to ensure that sustainable practices can be profitable even for micro SMEs and underprivileged families. Recap: the social taxonomy emphasizing the S in ESG, the well-being, crime prevention, inclusion, the SDGs, and the community growth. Those are key pillars in ensuring that prosperity and well-being are addressed. Ignoring is not an option unless we want to live in a society where the poor will tend to start committing crime, or crime is the way forward to be included in a society. We believe that this is a very critical component that we need to ensure that it takes place in any corporate strategy or government taxonomy. Thank you.